The CEO of Nissan is a fugitive. What happened to this important man? This recent story, and its outcome involving a former U.S. Special Forces soldier, who helped him make a Hollywood movie-worthy escape, made headlines around the globe. What made Carlos Ghosn a fugitive? It made Nissan's management very upset. The Japanese government, and the Japanese in general, for their lack of tact with the country's business culture. There was a prosecution against him by the Japanese authorities, but there was not even a trial to convict him as a criminal. Carlos Ghosn had the extraordinary gift of getting large companies such as Michelin, Renault, and Nissan out of trouble and making them profitable in a short period of time. He was an authority on the subject, and became one of the most influential people in the world. But everything would change during his tenure at Nissan, and he would become an international fugitive. Before continuing with the topic, remember to subscribe to the channel, leave us your like and don't forget to give us your opinion when the video ends, below in the comments. Carlos Ghosn was born in Brazil. His paternal grandfather ran several agricultural rubber companies and an aviation company, generating a large fortune. When he died, he inherited assets to the family that allowed them to have a high standard of living. Carlos lived only 6 years in Brazil, then moved to Beirut, Lebanon. There he completed his high school studies in a French school, and his preparatory studies were in Paris. Finally, he graduated as an engineer in 1974. He was an outstanding student. It was at Michelin that he got his entrepreneurial start. In 1978, he started working for the Michelin tire company. Because of how brilliant he was at his job, and the positive impact his work had on the company, he was promoted and at the age of 30, he was appointed CEO of Michelin South America. He would then return to Brazil. At Michelin South America, he was given the objective of returning operations to profitability. Remarkably, in just 2 years he achieved his goal. This was to be the first of his many successes. The key was his great ability to manage multicultural teams. A unique approach for the time. For years after being assigned there, he was asked to take over Michelin's North American operations. By 1990, he was already CEO of Michelin North America, had risen to the top position, and went on to work for the company for 8 more years, making a name for himself and earning an unbeatable reputation. His era at Renault. In the year 1996, Renault was in a difficult economic situation, needing a change of route or they would end up declaring bankruptcy. He was appointed executive vice president of Renault. The goal was to make a massive restructuring. A year later, the company was saved from a disastrous end and became profitable again. By the beginning of 1999, all the companies in the automotive industry wanted Carlos Ghosn in their companies. His tenure at Nissan. By the time Carlos was appointed Chief Operating Officer of Nissan, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was a complete disaster. Management was not doing things right. While Carlos went to take over Nissan, he continued to hold his position at Renault. The mission to save Nissan was almost impossible. In just over a year he had achieved his goal, and before the end of the year he had Nissan back to profitability. He went from posting losses of $6 billion to making a profit of $2.7 billion, and by the year 2002 he had already reduced the debt. To achieve its goal, it closed 5 manufacturing plants and eliminated 21,000 jobs. He also sold off company assets, and, disregarding Japan's conservative business culture, he did not shake his hand to change anything he thought necessary. He started a revolution that struck at Nissan's principles. He replaced Japanese, the company's official language, with English, removed Japanese from key positions and placed American and European executives. He removed parts supply contracts from domestic companies, and eliminated traditions such as the promotion system based on age and seniority, or unconditional lifetime employment. By these measures, he made many enemies. The best CEO in Nissan's history. In mid-2001 Carlos Ghosn was appointed CEO of the company for his impressive work. In 2002 Nissan was already one of the most profitable automotive companies in the industry worldwide, but Carlos wanted more success, more fame and more money. So at a press conference, he unveiled a new plan for the company. He would sell more than 1 million cars and eliminate all debt, and he set a period of just 3 years to do it. And he succeeded. By 2005, sales had passed 3 million units, and the company's debt had been paid off that year. Such an achievement made Carlos a complete celebrity. Renault also made him CEO. He was the first person in history to be CEO of 2 companies. He became a star on magazine covers and in many headlines, and they even launched a comic book series in Japanese called The True Story of Carlos Ghosn. Until the year 2008 came and everything started to go downhill fast. The crisis and the problems. The financial crisis that exploded in 2008 affected the whole planet. People stopped buying cars and the market declined. Carlos did not intend to give in to the pressure and would continue with his plan no matter what measures he had to take. Hoping to gain market share, in 2009 they brought out the Nissan GTR, and in 2010 they debuted the company's first electric car, but this time their plan didn't work. The tactics he was implementing were not working, and Nissan was no longer a profitable company. In a desperate move, he began offering huge bonuses to all dealers who met extremely high sales targets. The bonuses were so big that dealers saw an incredible business. They started buying their own cars to meet Nissan's goals, and get the bonuses. After a few months they were selling the cars as used. Nissan's sales increased, but artificially, and the plan did not work. Carlos' attempts to get Nissan back on its feet worsened the company's finances, and this began to make the executives very nervous. Carlos had a salary of $16 million a year, 11 times more than the CEO of Toyota. And while things were not going well, he added the last drop to the glass. The plan to merge Nissan with Renault was an insult to Nissan's board of directors and their patriotism. Nissan was a Japanese company and did not support mergers. They had put up with the lack of respect for Japanese business culture, because it revived the company and was making them rich, but when profits started to decline, there was no reason to tolerate it anymore. So a conspiracy began to form, to oust Carlos from Nissan. Top executives of the company, members of the Japanese government, and even the police worked as a team to achieve this. It was November of the year 2018, when Carlos received a request to attend a meeting in Tokyo with some members of the Nissan board, boarded a private jet, and landed at Japan's international airport. He was surprisingly arrested as he left the airport. He was accused of underdeclaring his salary, using Nissan funds to buy property around the world, and adding huge amounts of money to his retirement fund. They were taken to a detention center, stripped of his right to use his cell phone and to communicate, not even with a lawyer. 3 days later, Nissan's board of directors removed him from his position as president, and 4 days later Mitsubishi did the same. Shock and trauma. Describing the moment of his arrest at Tokyo Airport, Carlos Ghosn says it was like being hit by a bus, or having something really traumatic happen to you. The only memory I have of this moment is shock, trauma, he added. Ghosn was taken to the Tokyo Detention Center, where he was given prison clothes and confined to a cell. Suddenly I had to learn to live without a watch, without a computer, without a phone, without news, without a pen, nothing, he recounted. It was unclear when a trial would take place, it was feared it could take years, and Ghosn faced another 15 years in prison if convicted, in a country that has a 99.4% conviction rate. Carlos Ghosn is locked up in prison. Once arrested, he was not allowed to post bail, was confined in solitary confinement and remained so for 108 days, during which he was interrogated daily without a lawyer. When he was finally released, he had to post bail of 1 billion yen. He was kept under round-the-clock surveillance and was not allowed any access to the internet. He was to serve house arrest until he was brought to trial. He spent a full year like that. He was cornered and sentenced, without a fair trial. The Great Escape. In December of the year 2019, Carlos left the apartment building where he was a prisoner. With great caution he managed to reach a nearby hotel, where he met Michael Taylor and his son. Michael was a retired U.S. Special Forces soldier. Carlos hired him to help him escape from Japan. They left the hotel and took a train to Osaka. Then they headed for Kansai International Airport. Only Michael and his son made it on foot. Carlos was hidden in one of the boxes with musical equipment, which they carried as luggage. He did not pass through the X-ray, because the box they chose to transport him in was big enough so that it could not be passed through the machine. About this Carlos said, "When you enter the box, you don't think about the past, you don't think about the future, you only think about the moment. You have no fear, you have no emotion, except the huge concentration on, this is your chance, you can't miss it. If you miss it, you're going to pay for it with your life, with the life of a hostage in Japan." They finally managed to evade security and took off for Turkey, where they boarded a private jet to Beirut, Lebanon. Since then Carlos has been free again. When Carlos revealed the news to the world, it was reported on almost every news portal and TV channel on the planet. He said in a statement that he will no longer be held hostage to a manipulated Japanese justice system where guilt is presumed, discrimination is rampant and basic human rights are denied. Although the businessman's future is still uncertain, because he has accounts to render and a warrant for his arrest by Interpol, he has more chances and money than those who helped him escape, as Michael and his son were extradited from the United States to Japan, and now face criminal charges. How does the Japanese hostage system of justice work? The Carlos Ghosn story put the spotlight on the Japanese judiciary, often criticized and described as a hostage system of justice. Living in Japan, it is easy to be satisfied with the country's crime levels, they are incredibly low. Because many people are terrified at the very thought that they might be arrested. Pressure to confess. The Japanese criminal justice system focuses on interrogations. The goal is to obtain a confession. A suspect who admits to a crime is released from prison. But if a person refuses to admit to a crime, the prosecution will oppose the suspect's release until the suspect makes a confession. 89% of convictions are for confessions. Japanese prosecutors are very insistent. They write the plot before they carry out the arrest. There are numerous examples of people spending years in prison for crimes they did not commit, and of cases that have raised doubts due to seemingly unsure confessions. The power of Japanese prosecutors. At the root of the problem is the enormous power that prosecutors have in Japan. Under Japanese law, the prosecution has the exclusive right to indict. They also have the right to drop charges. This means, it weighs heavily on the Japanese criminal justice system. In most cases, the courts follow the prosecutor's decisions. This is the system that defendants like Carlos Ghosn are up against, where if you don't confess, you will be held longer and likely face more serious charges. If prosecutors bring charges, your chances of being found guilty are 99%. Officially, there is a presumption of innocence. But even if the suspect is not guilty, they have an advantage by admitting the crime. This is the most perverse effect of the hostage system of justice in Japan. Prosecutors can rearrest a suspect on a slightly different charge, with court approval. The clock restarts and they start the interrogation all over again. This is what happened to Carlos Ghosn, twice. In total, he was held and interrogated for 53 days, before being formally charged. No right to bail. In many countries, formal indictment would be the trigger for a suspect's release on bail. But not in Japan, as Carlos Ghosn recently found out. But the Carlos Ghosn case raises several questions. By any objective measure, the alleged misconduct was less serious than corporate misconduct, which is usually overlooked in Japan. Why is the Special Investigation Unit of the Tokyo Public Prosecutor's Office pursuing this case so vigorously? Ghosn's real crime, in the eyes of Japan's prosecutorial elite, is greed. He was the first CEO in Japan to earn millions of dollars a year, and it changed Japanese corporate culture. The Tokyo prosecution is driven by the belief that they are the guardians of justice. In an era of economic inequality, prosecutors want to become famous for being the ones who caught the rich. Leave your comments below. Remember to like, subscribe and share this information, so that it reaches more people. We leave you another video with the things you should avoid, so you don't become poor, here below. Thanks for watching.